Well, this week saw mass protests over State's Parliament's decision to cut the budget that has shocked people. Most of the plan revolved around the closure of the Parkes Community Centre and a bulldozing of it for housing. It created an unusual alliance of opposition ranging from the Liberals to the unions. And after a week of headlines, late this afternoon the government announced a change of plans. In a moment we'll hear from Minister Rankin, but first to the Parkes.
I don't understand how it can be economical to just get rid of it, because it won't come back. Once we start closing places like this, they don't rebuild them.
And if ever there was a symbol of what the Labor Party is about, it's the Parkes Community Centre.
The Parkes Centre must be kept and upgraded.
The government should rethink this decision and listen to the voice of the community.
When you get the locals, backed by the leader of the unions, lining up with the Liberal leader and the church leader appointed to advise the Labor leader, it looks like it could all be leading to a big problem politically. And a poll in the paper this week of more than 350 people has borne this out. 97% of them say the Parkes should be preserved.
The Parkes is a really precious asset for the whole community out here in the West and for the broader Adelaide community. There should be more places like this. Yay!
Sita Backer grew up in Semaphore and now lives in Torrensville. She takes her children to the kinder gym at the Parkes, and she's also one of the more than 100 women involved in roller derby there. She first came to the Parkes 3 years ago as a young mum with 2 babies.
I was at home all day by myself with them. I'd left the workforce and I was feeling a bit isolated. And then I joined this crazy crew of roller derby and started coming here 2 or 3 times a week. And I really didn't understand what community was until I'd met a community like this. And it's not just our group, it's all of the other groups here are sharing the space, doing activities together, having fun together, sharing goals together. And that kind of social connection gives you a kind of support that it just isn't there in a modern community. And to find it here is so special.
The government says the facilities are run down. The Aquatic Centre does, after 30 years, need a lot of millions spent on it. But like the rest of the centre, it appears clean and almost picture perfect. The well-lit main stadium covers more than 1,600 square metres and is complete with a rock climbing wall. Above the stadium's a fitness centre fitted out with all the usual equipment, and next to that is an immaculate childcare room and a couple of squeaky clean squash courts.
It's safe, secure, clean. We've never had a problem with any of the facilities, not even the car park, not even a broken toilet or a dripping tap.
Just down the corridor from the stadium is the gymnasium. Some of its members have been coming to the Parkes almost since the day it opened.
I went to school here in the 80s, and I just think it's absolutely silly to close it.
Another part of the argument being put forward for closing the Parkes is that the profile of the area has changed from when it was first built, and the centre is poorly patronised. None of the Parkes staff was prepared to appear on camera, but what they did say was that the view that this place is not being used is wrong. They said that last month 540 people a day paid to use the sporting facilities here. Now if you work that out, that comes to around 200,000 paying customers a year.
I was contacted by a retired senior member of Parliament, Labor Party, who was very, very distraught. He said to me that Mick Young and Don Dunstan would be turning in their graves over this because they were both so passionate about this social experiment which is the Parkes, and they proved that the formula works, and it does work.
When the Parkes opened in 1979, it was hailed as an example of just what could be done to improve the lot of children, their families and the broader community in disadvantaged areas.
The Education Centre is a major part of the $15 million Parkes Community Centre, designed to integrate the facilities of the community and the Education Department.
Don Dunstan created the Parkes in the dying days of his Labor government. It was the most extensive and expensive integrated school and community project ever built in the state. He was forced to fight for its survival just 17 years later when he was dying of cancer.
In this case, there are numbers of disadvantaged groups who are serviced by this community. And if we're determined enough, we can stop them from closing it.
So when the Liberal government closed the school down in 1996, it was seen as the beginning of the end. There were massive protests led by the Labor opposition.
What we are seeing in South Australia at the moment is a fundamental assault by a Liberal government on the western suburbs of Adelaide.
We were on the same side, fighting for the community, and now we're on a different side, and we're still fighting for the community, and he's not fighting for the community.
The people of the parks around that area traditionally are the battlers. They don't have a strong voice. They're not well resourced. They don't have the political clout. They don't have the money to fund campaigns.
Gary Johansson has written to the federal government, and he met with the relevant state minister today because he says despite all the new housing, his region still has major social problems. It also has the highest refugee and Aboriginal population in the state, and the parks is needed more today than when it was first built.